What's up, guys? This is Ray J back with another video. And today I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall markets. I'm going to break down what's going on with the market moving forward because we just got some news involving Donald Trump imposing more tariffs on more countries. But simultaneously, I'm seeing some news that Donald Trump may also just be using this for negotiation, and we could be seeing a big shift in policy. So I'm going to break down everything for you guys in this video, talk about what's happening with Tesla sales and the share prices of all these companies. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed a 30 in total. And the offer ends very soon at the end of March. Anyways, we had a very, very wild day today. We saw the market essentially dump really hard in the morning. We saw Tesla dip all the way down to about 262 a share. Then we saw this monstrous bounce to about $284. So it actually saw an over 22-point bounce. It bounced 22 points. Then it dumped again, closed in the red, and then it started to run again in the after hours. So pretty crazy volatility. Big dump, a bounce, a dump, and a bounce, back and forth price action. And that same pattern basically perpetuated in the entire market. When you look at the markets as a whole, okay, the whole market dumped in the morning, then rebounded very hard, then it dropped again. So that's a pretty decent sign showing us that the market's trying to base. But so far, we need more confirmation because of some factors. So today we saw consumer durables in the red, finance, health technology, and etc. were in the red. But some stocks such as Nvda and Google were in the green. So very, very interesting pattern. However, the majority of stocks were still in the red. What's going on? Well, starting off with Tesla, I just want to say that Tesla did see its Chinese made EVs drop 49.2% in February relative to a year ago when we saw about another decrease. This is not that big of a surprise considering that we had the Lunar New Year holiday, which did shift their sales. We're also seeing a lot of people waiting for the Model Y refresh. Despite that, we're still seeing their sales down to about 30,688 Chinese made EV sales. So a big decrease in their sales overall. And this is what's leading to a lot of criticism amongst different investors and etc. So please keep that in mind. Besides that, with all this criticism that Tesla's getting, there were additional factors that caused it to dip as the whole market came down. There's some big news that came out that the US is now imposing 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada. Starting today, that happened, not to mention a 10% tariff on Canadian energy. So that's some very, very big news. This is what caused the market to dump really, really hard, especially after Donald Trump imposed an additional 10% tariff on Chinese imports. So that's some big news. This is going to be affecting a lot of different products and lots of different businesses, and the market had a more negative response. So I'm not going to go over all the reasons why Trump is doing this. You guys can see that there's many reasons. I actually highlighted some of them right over here. I don't want to get too political on this channel. That's why I'm not going to go over every specific detail, but let me just make that very, very clear. And then as a result of these tariffs, okay, there's a lot of these like trade deficits that Trump is trying to basically offset. He's trying to do this in response to creating more fairness in his view for the US. These are his opinions. I'm not saying he's right or wrong, it's just his thoughts. And then as a result, like I said, this led to a lot of retaliation. So we had Trudeau giving a speech. Canada is now going to be imposing a 25% tariffs on about $107 billion worth of American goods. That includes a $20.7 billion worth of goods tariff coming out for orange juice, peanut butter, and many products like that. And then we have another $86 billion worth of goods that are going to be tariffed again in the next 21 days, according to Trudeau. So it's leading to this big war now between these countries raising tariffs on each other, and it's leading to some very, very big games. So just keep that in mind. That's what we're seeing so far. And then that's also leading to a lot of controversy depending on different factors. So, like I said before, that's important. We also have another big news for tomorrow. It's going to be affecting the markets. For today, we have Donald Trump giving a speech at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which means that tomorrow it's going to be affecting the way the stock market moves. That's what I meant when I said that. So today at 9 p.m., and about, I think it's like 2 hours from the time I'm recording this video, we have Donald Trump basically going to be giving a speech at the US House chamber that may cause a lot of volatility. We'll see what he says about his tariffs, his plans, and etc. So get ready. Does he pump the markets? Does he cause a rug pull? We have to be ready just to be safe. Now, about these tariffs, one thing you have to remember is that they're not always going to be just set in stone. Sometimes they could be used for negotiation tactics. And that's exactly what the US Commerce Secretary is saying. So we have Howard Lutnick coming out saying that Donald Trump may announce a compromise with Canada and Mexico tomorrow, the day after they impose these tariffs, because he could be trying to make a deal for them to do even better. That's what he is quoting. He thinks that Trump is going to work something out and that they may actually see a delay. He's not saying that the tariffs will be gone, but this could just cause another delay. There's another possibility of that. And he thinks that that could lead to a very, very big change. So, does he think that this is going to happen tomorrow? That's what he's saying. I can't promise that. Nothing is guaranteed quite yet. But just keep in mind that Donald Trump could make some big announcements tomorrow. So, we'll be listening to see what he has to say. Will Donald Trump say the tariffs are delayed? And is he going to try to incentivize these countries to trade more with the US to offset some deficits? Could that cause a big bounce in the markets? Or is this just wishful thinking? And is the Commerce Secretary wrong? Is Donald Trump not going to say anything else? Right. So it's a very, very sticky situation. We have these tariffs that cause the market to dip, but now there's been some talk that this could just be another negotiation tactic. It all depends. So the best thing to do is just wait and see. We're going to just wait and react. So that's why I'd recommend just being very careful. When it comes to these tariffs, okay, always remember that these tariffs that are being imposed are going to have to be paid by the importer, but simultaneously, the consumers likely have to pay higher costs to offset that. This also could cause businesses to reduce their margins and profits. That could be affecting a lot of different products that we're going to be looking at. One of the reasons why Trump wanted to impose these tariffs, there's a lot of reasons. I'm just going to go over just a couple of them, is because of the trade deficits. So right now we have about $171 billion trade deficit between the US and Mexico. Donald Trump is arguing that this is why he wants to do it. Could this still change? Could Donald Trump try to get Mexico to buy more American products? Could he try to do a bunch of things like that and then end up decreasing these tariffs? We'll have to see about that. But for now, this is one of the reasons that Trump is using. We have the same thing going on with Canada. We have about a $63.3 billion trade deficit between our exports and imports. Could this be another reason why we see another big volatility shift? We'll have to see about that. But keep in mind, this is one of the things that Donald Trump has been talking about. This is part of why he wants to do it. So we'll see about that. That's very, very important. I also want to mention that between 75 and 78% of the Canadian exports actually go to the US, and they're very dependent on the US in this case. The US, however, only gets about 15% of its imports from like Canada and like 16% from Mexico or something like that. My point in saying this is that the US has more leverage, and Donald Trump could be trying to use that leverage for different things, right? Whether he wants to impose these tariffs or if he's just trying to negotiate, we'll have to see about that. And then to add on to this, these are some of the main exports from Canada. We get a lot of our fuel, machinery, aluminum products, plastics, and etc. Lots of lumber, and then car products do come from Canada. The U.S. does get a lot of benefits from that. When it comes to Mexico, we get lots of our exports as well, or at least we get lots of our imports from them. They're the ones that export these products. We get machinery, mechanical appliances, minerals, fuels, electric machinery. Lots of automakers do depend on them. And then finally, we also get like fruits and vegetables and lots of foods from them. So that's very, very important. So just keep that in mind. Mexico do end up affecting these things. So with that being said, these are the two main things affecting the markets. Another big factor is going to be this. We have tomorrow being Wednesday, March 5th, 2025. At 9:45 a.m., we have the S&P Global Composites and Services PMI reports. Then at 10 a.m., we have the ISM Services Business Activity, Employment, and New Orders reports as well. That may also cause even more volatility. So just keep that in mind. That's going to be very important for how things end up continuing. So the ISM Services will cause more volatility at 10 a.m. tomorrow. And then Donald Trump's speech, he's going to give a speech tonight. That's going to cause volatility as well for the market. So we'll see what Donald Trump says and what this data looks like. Two more things for tomorrow. Well, for today, actually, we had some retail stocks announce their earnings. They did relatively well. For tomorrow, we have Foot Locker announcing earnings, not to mention a few more retail. Then we have Costco on Thursday. And then for the fear and greed index, we actually have extreme fear making up the majority of sentiments. Momentum is at extreme fear as well right now. There's a lot of fear that's still present. We're also losing the 125 daily moving average, at least on the S&P 500. The put to call option ratio is going up as more puts are being bought and volatility remains at extreme fear. That is what's making up the majority of sentiment. Anyways, with that being said, I now just want to focus on what's going on with our charts, I want to focus on that and prioritize that now. So what's going on, at least so far? As you guys can see, looking at Tesla, we have a bullish divergence right over here, which could be a promising sign. And then when you look at the daily time frame on Tesla, the daily looks like it's very indecisive. We're still waiting to see our direction. We are starting to fill this gap here. So hypothetically, if you see Tesla lose 260, I do expect us to fill that gap down to about 252. We will be filling the gap down to the low 250s if we lose 260. If we don't lose 260 to 262 and we hold that support, there could be an attempt to get back above and try to push back up to 290, right? Especially with this bullish divergence. So, with that being said, in my opinion, I think there's a good chance that we try to see a move like this where we push up higher. Then we'll see if we get some kind of dip move. If we can make a higher low on Tesla, especially thanks to this bullish divergence, we could be looking for an attempt to get up to about the 290s for a small bounce. Now, I do think that technicals do suggest this with the bullish divergence and the fact that we're holding this yellow trend line. If you zoom out of Tesla and redraw the trend line, we are technically holding our support. This big yellow trend line is acting as our support zone. So there's a good chance we try to revisit our 20 EMA at 290. But the problem with this is that I can't make promises because it depends on what the big guy Donald Trump says tomorrow. It also depends on our services numbers that come out for tomorrow as well. So I'll be waiting for that. But for now, there's a good chance we see another a little dip move before Tesla tries to bounce. As long as we make a higher low, we don't lose that 262 to 260 area. We could be looking for a move like this, a move back up towards that 290 area or even above. So keep that in mind. It's going to be very impactful. So we'll see how it goes. For SPY is looking more bullish, especially when we look at like our 4-hour time frame. We're trying to get a bounce here, but that depends on if we could base at these key levels. So we have this blue trend line. When you zoom out of SPY, that was our resistance becoming support, the blue trend line. That is going to be where we have our support right here at the 570s. Our main supports between 572 and also on the daily time frame, we have 568-ish. That is technically, let me just double check this right here, the 200 EMA. So if we look at our 200 EMA right here, that's at 568. We also have previous resistance becoming support there. I think that, okay, there's a good chance that we base between 568 to 572. If we lose 568, I will turn even more bearish. It's not going to be a good sign. But my guts is telling me that we're going to base in that area, and we could be looking for a rebound move, a rebound attempt for 585 to 588. And if we break that, we're looking for the 590s. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a move like this where we push tomorrow morning. We see a higher low. If we can make a higher low and at least hold that 272 area, then we could be looking for a rebound attempt for 590. There's a good chance that's going to happen from technicals, but I can't promise anything. Could our catalyst be that Donald Trump is using these tariffs for negotiation? He's going to delay them again. I don't know for sure, guys. People are saying that that's likely what's going to happen. We don't know for sure if there's going to be another deal that's signed and Donald Trump announces it. I don't know what Donald Trump is going to say during his speech exactly. We don't know what this data will look like. So there's lots of unknowns right now that we have to wait for. But I do think from a technical basis, there's a good chance we do try to base soon before we try to bounce. For the QQQ, it's the same thing essentially that's going on. We've been making lower highs and lower lows, but there's still a nice switch on our PPO. If we could break and hold above 500, we're looking for an attempt to get back up to about 505. If we lose support at 495, we could be dipping lower. So I think there's a good chance we do attempt some kind of push like this. If we make a higher low, we could be trying to bounce and form like an inverse head and shoulders for 506. So if we reject off 500, we're looking for a dip back down. As long as we make a higher low, we're going to be in a good place. I also want to mention that we have this nice support between 493 and 490. So watch those levels very closely. My gut tells me that if we do try to go a little higher, there might be another dip move coming, but we need to make a higher low. We need to try to hold 490. If we could do that on the QQQ, I'm going to be looking for a bounce back to 506 or above, especially because Nvda, of all things, is doing a good job, and that could help us. So that could be a very, very big factor in this. So just keep that in mind, at least as time goes on. I also want to mention that we're doing a good job, so we could be watching to see if we end up getting that bounce. Overall, the QQQ has that potential. For others out there, we also have the Russell 2000. We're attempting a rebound move, but I just want to mention that we need to see if we can break this white's trend line. So this is going to be our resistance becoming support. Can we break through this to start bouncing, or do we end up failing? I'll be watching this very closely. When you zoom out, by the way, and look at the inverse head and shoulders right here, it's just like this. It's a little hard to see, but you guys can see this. There's like a left shoulder, head, and then a right shoulder. The main support's going to be at 200, and so far we're trying to base there. So there's still some potential. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a similar move where we get that dip and bounce. If we see some kind of like pullback move before it just tries to rebound for like the 212 area, there's a good chance that could be what's about to come. For the ES chart, I want to mention that we're doing a good job at holding support as well. We're basing right over here at this support and kind of trying to break out. The same thing is happening right over here. Notice we have this yellow trend line as support. We touch this bounce many, many times. And in this case, we're trying to touch and hold this support right here. And this could also lead to a bounce back up towards the 5880s to 5900 area. So looking at this wick right here, the low in the 5750 area, we'll see if we make a higher low here before we try to bounce and start pushing for 5900. As long as we hold this low here, we could be trying to rebound for 5900 or so. For NQ, we're forming a nice divergence. You guys can see that right here we have this resistance where we rejected many times, and we're trying to hold support. So we'll see how it ends up going. I want to see if we can break past 20,698. There's a good chance that we could be trying to push even higher from here. It depends. I think there's going to be another dip move coming like this, but if we can make a higher low and try to hold this blue trend line, we could be looking for a bounce, right? If we lose the blue trend line, we dump to the low 19,000s. As long as we make a higher low, we're going to be looking for a push back up towards 21,000. So just keep that in mind. For Bitcoin's doing a good job so far at holding up. We have like an inverse head and shoulders. I do want to mention that there's going to be a dip move coming first. We'll see if we come back down to this imbalance for like 84,000. And as long as we continue to make higher lows, we could continue to rebound like this. So I'm going to be watching to see if we could form like a trend line here and kind of draw out our next support. So it could be a move just like this where we come back down to this low before we see some buyers defend us. There's a good chance that's what's about to happen. For Nvda, I want to mention that we're looking very, very resilient. We're forming a somewhat bullish divergence. It's not that strong though, but I want to mention that it's turning right now, and that's what matters more. We also closed above the 115 area, which is a decent sign. This looks like it wants to retest 120. We'll see if we reject off that, but I do see some more upside potential here. So we'll see what the reaction is. Do we push to 120, reject? As long as we can make a higher low, then we could be looking for an attempt like this to push. That's what I'm essentially going to be looking for the time being. Once again, for Tesla, we're trying to hold this yellow support. We have a nice bullish divergence. This typically favors upside a little bit more, and there could be a small bounce coming. For Aapl, we also happen to have this yellow trend line acting as support. We touch this bounce, touch this bounce many, many times. So as long as we can hold this trend line, we're going to likely try to push for essentially the 240 area. I think so far we're doing a good job in my personal opinion. There's a good chance I may attempt to continue this. For other factors out there, we have Netflix. Netflix is stuck within a range. If we break past 992, we're looking bullish. And if we end up losing 955, we could turn back down. We're stuck in between these levels, and we could be looking for an attempt for 990. So far, so good. For MSTR, we look bullish on the 4-hour time frame, forming an inverse head and shoulders like pattern. That's also looking a little bit more promising. If we hold above 282, we're looking for an attempt for 290. So far, it does look a little bit more bullish. Celsius is going to be testing 26. If we break that, there's going to be an attempt to fill this imbalance towards 27. So I see potential. For Supermicro, we're looking for 42.2 to about 44.8. So we'll see if we break through that to see a small bounce. For Palantir, we're trying to hold support here. As long as we can try to break past this resistance at 90, we're looking for an attempt to get up to 93.5. Rivian has a bullish divergence. If we can break past 11.7, we're looking for an attempt to get back up to 12. I see potential for a bounce. For SoFi, we have a bullish divergence. As long as we don't lose support around like 12.5, I think we might dip a little bit towards like the low 13s before it tries to bounce for 13.9 to 14 for a small bounce. AMD looks a little bullish. If we could hold above 101, I think we could be attempting to get up to about 105. ARM is looking decent. We could be trying to get back up to 125 and 129, especially as we have this imbalance to fill, so we're doing good. Coin looks decent because we have a nice double bottom right here. We're forming kind of like a big George W. So as long as we're above 215, we're looking for an attempt to get back up to about 230. So keep that in mind. Amazon has a bullish divergence. If we could break past 209, we're looking for an attempt to get up to about 214. If we lose 200, we're going to be bearish, but for now, it does look like it wants to push to at least 209. Meta has a bullish divergence. We could be looking for an attempt to get up to about 657 as long as we break 650. Microsoft is looking a little bit more decent. We have to see if it can break 393. If that breaks, we're looking for an attempt to get up to 400. For Google, we have a bullish divergence, and we're going to be looking to see how this ends up going, especially as we push for 176. GameStop is trying to push for 24.7. AMC is trying to push back up to about 3.2. DJT looks decent. We have a slight divergence as well. Typically, we push back up to our 20 EMA in a pattern like this to about 23.8. The VIX is showing a little bit of weakness, but I want to mention we haven't lost support yet. So it could be another push like this, maybe a dip coming, which could suggest the market may try to bounce, at least technically speaking. So it depends on what kind of reaction we get. The 10-year is also responding to the tariffs. It's going up just a little bit. And the dollar is dipping, which is still a decent sign. So there's not much going on right now. The market does look a little bit more like it wants to base and bounce soon, but this depends on what the big guy says during his speech. So get ready for Donald Trump's speech tonight. It may cause some volatility. And also, we're going to be waiting to see if he truly does end up delaying the tariffs, like we're seeing the Commerce Secretary implying. We'll see about that. And then last but not least, the last thing is going to be our data for tomorrow, the ISM services numbers. That may cause more volatility. So for now, we'll see what the market ends up doing. Tesla is trying to hold support, so it's looking a little bit more promising. So I thank you all for listening. Please have a good rest of your day, and I'll be back with another upload for tomorrow. Thank you again, and peace out.